Hi, welcome back. I'm Eileen Chevalier and I created the typewriter alphabet flashcards. And we're going to learn about botany today. Our topic is seeds and fruit. All angiospermae produce covered seeds. Angio means covered, sperm means seeds, so angiospermae is covered seeds in their flowers. In this lesson, we'll look at how and where seeds are formed and compare succulent and dry fruits. So the materials you're going to need your journal, of course, and things to write with. You'll want to have your typewriter alphabet flashcards, the DK Ultimate Visual Dictionary, and the DK Smithsonian Flora book. Before we get started on those, though, I'm going to read your definitions to you. So pull out your journal and write these down. Seed. Unit that contains a plant embryo protected by a seed coat. Fruit. The covering of an angiospermae seed. All right, so question and investigate section. Before we get into this today, I'm actually going to read to you some information in the Flora book. So this is from page 300. And it's talking about fruit anatomy. This is a very surprising page to many, many people. The succulent fruits are across the top here, and then the dry fruits are here. Again, we've talked about strawberries off and on. They are dry fruit. They're down there in the dry fruits section. Shocking, but true. Fruit anatomy. Essentially, fruit classification is based on a handful of characteristics, one of the most important of which is texture. Succulent fruits are eaten and dispersed by animals, whereas dry fruits rely on wind, gravity, or animal fur for dispersal. Although inspecting a fruit, and ideally a flower, the flower from which it is derived, should make everything clear, botanical classification can still be surprising. A cucumber, for example, is classified as a berry, while a strawberry is not. So, how things get classified is super interesting and surprising many times. So we're going to try to unpack that and learn a little bit about that today. First question. There are many ways to classify fruits. Simple fruits develop from a single ovary but may have many seeds. An example of that would be a grape. Compound fruits develop from many ovaries but each may have a single seed. So an example of that is a raspberry. So each little segment of the raspberry has one seed that was developed in there by its ovary, and then whereas in the grape it's all one ovary that has been developed into a fruit, but it has many seeds within it. Cut open fruits and try to determine which are simple and which are complex. And then you get to eat them. So this is something for you to try. Try cutting things open and see whether it's a simple fruit or a complex fruit. Secondly, some fruits are called false fruits or pseudocarps. And pseudo means false, and carp is from the carpal, which is another word for pistil, although they're not super interchangeable. Examples are apples, false fruits, figs, also a false fruit, and rose hips, another false fruit. Often, fruits can develop from the receptacle of a flower. How might the receptacle become the fleshy part of the fruit? Are hypogynous, paragynous, or epigynous flowers more likely to be false fruits, and why? So where the receptacle is around the ovary might determine whether or not it's becoming a succulent fruit or not, and whether or not that's a false fruit, because the pericarp, so if it's true fruit, then the ovary has become the fruit, right? The part that we would call the fruit, right? But if it's a false fruit, then there's some delicious material that we are eating that is not part of the ovary. So the receptacle often forms into those delicious things that we want to eat. And I will show you that picture again that shows the receptacle really well. So right here, this is the ovary down low, and then above it is the receptacle of this flower. And you can see like how large and fleshy the receptacle is as opposed to the ovary. So sometimes that receptacle becomes the fruit, and we think that of something as a fruit, even though it is in fact not part of the ovary. That's what happens with apples. So the very center of an apple is the developed ovary, and then everything around that is the fleshy part that we eat, but it's really just part of the receptacle. So just to clarify, the hypogynous, perigynous, and epigynous are in the pistil and stamen lesson, not the sexual reproduction lesson. So when we talk more specifically about how the pistil and stamen are related to one another, it's in that one. So if you want to look back at that a little bit more, you can. And I don't have any examples of, like, most of the flowers I drew don't develop into fruits. There is actually a peach right here listed in with the succulent fruits. It's a specific type called a drupe. And you guys, you can learn all the really specific ones. I tend to think that you'll remember the things that mean something to you. So if you can make up little rhymes, or if you want to draw pictures, that will help you to remember. But also the ones that are more interesting and surprising are sometimes more memorable. So for instance, the strawberry is really fascinating to me. That's the next one on the list. So actually it's not, it's two more. So it's in the journal section. First in the journal is to look at pages 300 to 301 in Flora, the picture that I showed you before. Beside the name of each type, there is a simple line drawing of the fruit structure. Which are the most surprising or intriguing to you? What technically is corn? Draw a few structures, label with a fruit type and an example. All right. So I'll show you a little bit of a close-up there. So corn is a dry fruit, which might not be surprising to you because it is pretty dry, but it might be surprising to you that it's a fruit. So you might think that it's just a grain or a vegetable perhaps, but really technically it is a fruit. The second journal prompt is that the pericarp, the fruit wall, can be succulent, as in a peach, or dry, like in a strawberry or a pea. Some fruits are easy to identify. Peas are contained in a pea pod pericarp. So when you open up the pea pod, it's all dry except for the little peas in there. So that's easy to understand. Other times it's quite difficult. For instance, strawberries. Strawberries aren't berries at all. In fact, they are dry fruits. How can this be? The key term is pericarp. Remember, para means around, and carp is the same as a pistil, so around the pistil. Remember that the ovary is part of the carpal pistil. If the ovary forms into a fleshy covering, like peaches, it's classified as a succulent. If not, the ovary forms a dry covering. Pick some tricky fruits and record them in your journal. So my favorite one, of course, is the strawberry. So the fleshy part of a strawberry is actually part of the receptacle. Remember how we looked at those on that other page? And technically that's a dry fruit, and it's called an accessory fruit. So they have all these specific names. Strawberries are accessory fruits. So really, if you think about putting on your accessories, just think, just put on all the fleshy, beautiful, luscious part of the strawberry. That's just an accessory. So these strawberry plants really know how to accessorize. They're just these plain little tiny dry fruits called seeds, and then their accessory is this delicious fleshy strawberry part. So they've mastered that technique. Another one that's interesting is the raspberry, and blackberries do the same thing. So they're not berries. Those are aggregate fruits, and that, it says it right there, aggregate. And so what's happening is you have a bunch of little individual berries almost. So like if you think of each one of those little tiny round pieces in a raspberry as a berry itself, then they're all coming together and it's forming an aggregate fruit. If they were all separated, I think technically you could call them a berry because it would just be the fleshy part around one ovule. All right. I bet there's some other interesting ones that you'll come across, so just put those in your journal. And if you want to try some peaches, since we are looking at the pea card today, that might be a good move. That's one of my favorites. All right, guys, I'll see you on the next lesson. Bye.